Hi, today we have Anshu Gupta, who is a CISO as well as investor in Silicon Valley CISO Investment. Hi, Anshu, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me today.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So broadly, started my career in the Big Four. Worked for Ernst& Young and KPMG. Did a lot of Fortune 500, Microsoft, Cisco Systems, Oracle, Salesforce, Sun Microsystems back in the day, and then I moved on to the startup world. Worked at Coupa Software, Varo Bank, HelloSign, where I was the 40th employee. So seen both the enterprise and the startup world in the Valley. I've been in the Valley for 17 years now, and I really enjoyed my time there.
So, what brings you here?
So actually, I came for a healthcare wellness retreat,
Okay.
and I'm spending some time in Bangalore to meet some of the security founders and practitioner security leaders in the area.
What do you think should be changed in the market right now for cybersecurity space to grow more?
So I see a lot of innovation coming, but it has to be real, and there should be real innovation. So I think the security industry has a little bit of what I would call like an overselling problem or selling solutions where the capabilities are exaggerated. Um, so we have to make sure that founders and entrepreneurs and even established companies are in constant touch with the practitioners to make sure these products are usable,
Okay.
and there's constant feedback loop in terms of features which the industry needs right now, and prioritize them accordingly.
How do you think in near future the cybersecurity space will change? And how do you think the market will react to it?
Yeah. So in security, we always come up with new controls, technical controls. You have new companies trying to solve problems. So it's a kind of a cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
That you have adversaries and malicious parties that are always thinking of ways to defeat systems. Like you have hackers who will test their malware against all the EDR solutions. So there's always going to be innovation. Everyone is trying to stay one step ahead in the game. So I think that the security industry will always keep on innovating to meet these new emerging threats. We also have some core innovations, for example, like artificial intelligence and large language models, which will accelerate or make the work which we're doing more efficient.
Since you talked about cyber innovations and AI being part of cyber innovations, what do you think in which field cyber innovation and AI could play a critical role?
So wherever there's a human element, which turns to be very expensive because you're human, and humans do make mistakes, humans do feel fatigue after a point of time. So wherever we can have judgment calls, repetitive work being done through autonomous systems, there's going to be great value add. I don't think that humans are completely going to get out of the picture, but some of these monotonous tasks where large amount of data processing, large amount of inferencing needs to be done on an ongoing basis, that's where I think it's going to be of great real help.
How do you see cybersecurity investment? Like, how is it different in US market and Indian market?
So I think there was a lot of frothiness in the market in the past 2 years, and given some of the economic scenario right now, uh, investors are being very judicious where they put in money. So we see investments going to repeat founders or in areas where there's real innovation. With all the hype about AI and ML, and so there are a lot of companies coming in the space, and we see a little bit again frothiness there. But investors who are extremely experienced, they will always have some basic parameters when they look at investments. And sometimes they choose to stay out of the market that this is not the right time to make investments. They look at the founders, they look at the basics, and I think the days where no due diligence was done are long gone.
Uh, Coming back to investment again, you are here in India trying to find for cyber innovation. Any particular tips you want to give to entrepreneurs in India who are basically trying to innovate in cybersecurity space? And you see any particular field which you see is basically going to grow a lot, and young entrepreneurs can basically contribute there.
Yeah, I think first thing would definitely be uh, try to be like a platform company versus like a feature company. So you could start with trying to solve a very specific problem, but if you want broad adoption, you have to have multiple hooks in the onto the customer. We are solving multiple problems through a platform. So that would be one advice. Second would be closer interaction with your customers, understanding how you're able to connect to the communities in the geography that you're selling. Every country has its own cultural nuance, the way sales are made, and especially like security leaders are tired of like getting calls. So you have to make sure that you create that branding, that the buzz, and your social media presence in a way that you end up in the top three. So traditional way that you have done well and you show up in the Gartner quadrant and whatnot.
Yeah.
But a company which is upcoming may not have that kind of fraction where you can get into the Gartner top three or top four. So what are the other ways where you can get mind share that when it comes to evaluating a product for that domain, you're in the top three. So that's where social media, creating that buzz and hype about your company and why, what innovation you're doing, getting that thought leadership in industry forums, that becomes more important.
Yeah. So Anshu, you have been CISO for very long. How do you think this role has evolved? And is there a single persona for CISO or there different personas for CISOs?
Yes. So this role has definitely evolved. I think the title didn't exist. Hasn't been like traditional. It has really evolved in terms of the scope and the breadth of your responsibilities, and also it depends on the industry you're in. Is it a regulated industry? Is it a direct to consumer kind of company? And also even the expectations are different. So for example, you are in a highly regulated industry, the security leader, the CISO would be expected to have risk and compliance experience, audit experience, having experience talking to the regulators. You might be in a company where the company needs to create that brand awareness, and it's more of a customer facing function where you're helping the marketing and the sales function versus operating internally, that you're putting security controls in place. It could be that a company has faced a breach, so they're looking for someone who would, what do we call a transformational CISO, or it could be someone that is more of a governance role, where your mandate is more strategic. What does a 3-year roadmap look like? Do we have the right team? Are we working on the right stuff? What are the current issues and how do we prioritize them? What does the budgeting look like? How do we interact with other departments? So based on company size, based on the industry, I do think that the expectations and the mandates are different.
How do you think basically anybody who is trying to sell their cybersecurity product services should approach to CISO? What do you think can be tips to basically approach to CISOs? Because most of the time we see they're flooded with calls and cold emails and they land up nowhere. What would be
Yes.
your suggestions for that?
So I do have actual tips regarding this. So you have to add real value. I think your very simple tip is that if there's a specific problem, for example, you are in cloud security or your email security, whatever the domain is, do you have the best content out there on your company blog or your website, where if I'm searching for a specific problem, your webpage shows in the top three? And many companies don't pay that much attention to the content. So you're adding real value. Second one is exposing your internal team members in industry forums and having a plan around it, which is we are doing some cutting edge research. How do we make sure that people know about it? So there's some underutilized functions. Typically, I see that there's an employee and they're really passionate about sharing, and that's when but it's not institutionalized. That we are doing it at very deliberately. Third, I would say is I would expect the company leaders to be more out there in terms of the social media presence, where they're doing thought leadership articles, because traditional model of this cold calling doesn't work anymore. You have to be innovative. You cannot basically rely on the old run books to sell in current day and age.
So I've seen that you use thought leadership a lot in your conversation. Uh, how do you see thought leadership in cybersecurity space? Because this is a very broad space, right? Which involves a lot of roles, not just CISOs and others, right? How do you see that thought leadership should evolve in cybersecurity space?
Yes. So I think every leader does have a niche, and especially if you go, one or two levels down, you have specific leaders who are working on security engineering, application security, mobile security, privacy engineering. So for any upcoming leaders, uh, those are the domains that they say, hey, what exists and what could be done better. And for product companies, which is like, we have a problem, why are we doing this better? So even having a clear um, enunciation of how they're solving a problem, the problem, so defining the problem statement and coming across like why, how and why are we meeting this? And that could be like one example of like leadership.
As an investor, cybersecurity space, how do you see roadmap for Indian cybersecurity companies?
Yeah. So I think one, we have a huge amount of cyber talent, which is hungry and ambitious and very hardworking folks. Uh, I think the transition, I think we have tons of people who have perfected their skills in the bug bounty platforms or penetration testing, doing assessments. There has been a lot of work which so the larger consulting firms have passed on to their India development centers or their consulting practices, which has helped develop the talent. I think there needs to be a transition where we should have be more product companies, and also I think the ecosystem would need to work where uh, apart from people coming together through serendipity, where they have gone to college together or have worked in a company together, how do we make sure that we have more co-founders coming together and starting companies together? So what we call discovery of common interest, where people with similar interests come together and start companies, and also leverage other ecosystems. So it doesn't have to be that maybe there's a founder from India and there's a founder in some other country. How do we make this more institutionalized in terms of discovery? I think would be very interesting.
Any final words that you would like to give to cybersecurity space?
Yeah, I think especially for founders in India, I would definitely say, focus on quality, focus on your customers, uh, make sure you have an ear to the ground, stay humble. Don't let any of the funding rounds get to your head. Stay humble. Do the hard work. Hustle and make things happen for your customers, and invest in their success.
Thank you, Anshu, for being here. We would definitely like to have you again here.
Sounds good. Thank you.